A New Mexico judge decided Monday that actor Alec Baldwin's role as co-producer isn't relevant to the involuntary manslaughter trial over a fatal shooting on the set of the Western film Rust. Judge Mary Marlowe Selmer ruled that evidence won't be allowed at trial about Baldwin's secondary role in the movie, siding with defense attorneys. "I'm having real difficulty with the state's position that they want to show that as a producer he didn't follow guidelines and therefore as an actor Mr. Baldwin did all of these things wrong that resulted in the death of Ms. Hutchins. Because as a producer he allowed these things to happen," Marlowe Selmer said. "I'm denying evidence of his status as a producer." Special Prosecutor Linda Johnson argued unsuccessfully to allow evidence that Baldwin's role as a producer made him keenly aware of his responsibilities on set for safety. "It goes to Mr. Baldwin's knowledge, knowing that his conduct on set was negligent," she said. Baldwin sat between lead attorneys Luke Nikas and Alex Spiro, with a yellow legal pad on the table in front of him. The trial starts Tuesday with jury selection and is scheduled to last 10 days. Lawyers for Baldwin pushed for the case to be dismissed last month, arguing that FBI testing of the firearm had damaged the weapon before lawyers were able to examine it for possible modifications. The defense team alleged the gun was damaged at the time of the incident and accused prosecutors of withholding potentially exculpatory evidence. Selmer rejected the dismissal request, saying Baldwin's lawyers had not proven prosecutors acted in bad faith. But the judge also said prosecutors would have to disclose to the jury the destructive nature of the firearm testing, the resulting loss, and its relevance and import. Defense attorneys have asked the judge to exclude consideration of Baldwin's secondary role as a co-producer on Rust, arguing it's irrelevant to allegations of negligence and might confuse jurors. Prosecutors disagree and say it was likely Baldwin's imposing role as a producer that emboldened him to act recklessly and disregard the safety of others in allegedly flouting gun safety protocols. The defense team and prosecutors disagree about Baldwin's contractual authority as producer over crew members who dealt with weapons and safety. Prosecutors argue that a state workplace safety investigation, which found serious violations on set, was incomplete, untrustworthy, and should be prohibited from the trial. Baldwin is charged with a single felony count of involuntary manslaughter punishable by up to 18 months in prison if he's convicted. Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, the armorer on set, was convicted of involuntary manslaughter in cinematographer Helena Hutchins' death and sentenced to 18 months in prison. She is appealing the conviction. In October 2021, Baldwin was rehearsing a cross-draw maneuver with the revolver when the gun went off, killing Hutchins and wounding director Joel Souza. Baldwin has pleaded not guilty and claims the gun fired accidentally after he followed instructions to point it toward Hutchins, who was behind the camera. Unaware the gun contained a live round, Baldwin said he pulled back the hammer, not the trigger, and it fired. Baldwin's attorneys also want to bar discussion at trial of actor Brandon Lee's death from a fatal shot to the abdomen while filming a scene from The Crow in 1993. In that instance, a makeshift bullet was mistakenly left in a gun from a previous scene and struck Lee while filming a scene that called for using blank rounds. Prosecutors have agreed not to elicit testimony about The Crow, but also contend that Baldwin knew about safety risks posed by guns even when live rounds are not present. Attorneys for Baldwin argue that it was inconceivable that live rounds would wind up on set. Prosecutors want to exclude a letter signed by crew members that disputes the characterizations of the Rust set as chaotic or dangerous prior to the fatal shooting. Prosecutors also want to exclude from trial the conclusions of the safety investigation into the fatal shooting that places much of the blame on assistant director Dave Halls. Halls has pleaded no contest to negligent use of a firearm and may be called to testify at Baldwin's trial. Rust Movie Productions paid a $100,000 fine to resolve violations of state safety regulations that were characterized as serious, but not willful under a 2023 settlement agreement. Prosecutors say conclusions of the investigation are easily contradicted by more reliable information. Baldwin's attorneys say the report can't be ruled out as evidence and that State Occupational Safety Officer Lorenzo Montoya should be allowed to testify at trial. Another pretrial motion might defuse snipping between the prosecution and defense teams. Prosecutors want the judge to preclude accusations of prosecutorial misconduct and personal attacks. Prosecutors also want the judge to exclude evidence and arguments designed to garner sympathy for Baldwin, including indications of remorse or the impact of events on his family, arguing that it has no bearing on determining guilt.